Study Session 12. Language and Expression. Introduction. One way of demonstrating your competence in the use of language is through your use of language. In communication, therefore, we have to choose our words to suit our purpose of communication. In this lecture, we discuss the qualities of elegant language usage and point out the deficiencies often noticed in communication. Objectives. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to 1. Distinguish between formal and informal writings. 2. Distinguish between British and American English varieties. 3. Know the figures of speech. 4. Avoid pitfalls in compositions. And 5. Use punctuation marks appropriately. Pretest. What is the difference between formal and informal language use? 2. What is the difference between American and British English usage? 3. How can you make your composition elegant? 4. What pitfalls should be avoided in your composition? Language is a major tool in expressing one's ideas in compositions. The better one is at using the language, the easier it is for readers to understand and appreciate one's ideas. The first step in using the English language is to decide on the nature of the composition. Is it going to be simple or sophisticated? Does it require a formal or an informal language? And would it be better to use the British or the American variety? All this depends on the expected audience of your composition. Language use and the audience. The language to be used in a composition may be formal, semi-formal, or informal. However, this is determined by the topic and the audience. The audience refers to the person or people that you have in mind while writing your composition. This may be the students of your school, a group of professionals, the members of a parliament, the president of a nation, etc. Again, your composition may be a term paper, a narrative, or an article for publication in a newspaper or a journal, etc. Each of these has peculiar linguistic features attached to it. Formal language. When the audience is not known to you, then it is not familiar to you. When you write a composition with that audience in mind, you should not show too much familiarity with it. Even when the members are known to you and the topic is not one you are discussing at your leisure, then you should use formal language. For instance, if you are discussing the impact of HIV/AIDS virus with your friends in your hostel, you can use informal language. But when you are presenting the same topic to a group of professionals in a language room, then you should use formal language. Compositions relevant to formal situations include articles for publication, term papers, letters to corporate bodies, police reports, minutes of a meeting, book review, etc. Such compositions require formal language since you do not know who will eventually read them. In situations where the audience is known, the topic and the audience's position, e.g. as manager of an establishment, will still require the use of formal language. One of the characteristics of formal language is complete grammaticality of sentences. So, we say, the boy that you saw was a student, rather than the boy you saw was a student. Thank you for your letter of 16th January, rather than thanks for your letter which I got in January. And James has not come, rather than James hasn't come. Sometimes, formal language may contain rare words. Such words are usually elevated beyond the ordinary day-to-day communication, e.g., communism, perestroika, emulable, etc. Formal language also permits a combination of simple, compound, and complex sentences. In some cases too, the language may be impersonal and passive. This is especially true of scientific reports and letters from corporate bodies, e.g., 1. You are advised to look for another school for your child. 2. When sodium is combined with chlorine, sodium chloride is formed. In these examples, the writers do not take responsibility for the content of the sentences. You should also avoid excessive use of vocabulary items, which are peculiar to your locality. In an article meant for an international audience, words like kabu kabu, okada, adire, tuo, and slangy expressions like yoppie, buddy, chick, bobo, etc. may not sound intelligible to the reading public in London, Japan, and Canada. So if they must appear, their translations must be provided. Also, such terms must be put in quotation marks or italicized to distinguish them from real English words. In addition, shortened words and contracted forms of words are usually not allowed in formal writings. Thus, words such as math, mathematics, info, information, exam, examination, cafe, cafeteria, etc. must be written in full, and contracted forms such as can't, cannot, don't, do not, won't, will not, etc. must be avoided. Informal language. When the audience is well known to the writer or speaker, then the relationship is that of familiarity. Thus, informal language is required. When both discuss, they interact in an informal situation since they know each other. An informal situation involves individuals who are familiar with each other. Therefore, compositions written within this background include narratives, accounts of events, and letters to friends and loved ones. Unlike what obtains in formal writing, sentences need not follow a strict grammatical norm. Thus, words such as who, whom, and that are optional in relative clause constructions. Also, contracted forms may be used, especially in compositions that are written to be spoken. Moreover, the vocabulary of informal use of language contains common everyday words as opposed to the elevated language use in formal writing. In addition, there is a common occurrence of phrasal verbs, monosyllabic words, figurative expressions, and idioms. Personal creativity of language is, however, encouraged in informal writing. You can create new words and expressions provided they are grammatical. Furthermore, it also permits the use of words which are peculiar to the author's locality. So also are shortened words and slangy expressions. However, these should be minimized. Having come this far, we must note the importance of choosing the appropriate language for our compositions. If we use formal language in an informal setting, the composition will be bookish and rigid, without any flavor. Also, if one uses an informal language in a formal setting, the composition will look frivolous or ordinary and the writer unserious or possibly irresponsible. British or American English. Usually, some students are at a loss as to which language variety to use. This is because they have been exposed to the British and the American varieties of English, either through the books they read, or through watching American films, or through socialization with American English users. Some other candidates are even unaware of the distinctions between the two forms. Consequently, they mix up the two forms in their compositions. Such candidates are usually given away by their inconsistent ways of spelling words. In writing a composition, you should decide which variety you want to use and stick to its approved spellings throughout the composition. Here is a collection of vocabulary items which show the differences in spelling between British and American English varieties. They are tabulated to show the correspondences between the two varieties. However, note that this list is representative rather than exhaustive. Spelling forms. Verbs. Below are the spelling conventions of the past perfect forms of some verbs. Notice that in some cases, the consonant is doubled in British English, but it is single in American English. In others, where the British English uses T, the American English uses ED. Note that in some cases, such as in the word organize, the British English uses both forms, while the American English sticks to the ZE form. Spelling forms. Nouns. Notice that these are samples of the two varieties of English. You should therefore learn this and explore all the vocabulary items in the varieties. Any inconsistency in the use of the varieties is a minus for your composition. Figures of speech. In informal writings, especially descriptive and narrative forms, writers usually have a lot of descriptions to do. In order not to waste words and at the same time make their writings elegant, they use figures of speech to paint the exact picture they want. An appropriate use of these figures of speech makes the composition exciting. Meanwhile, you should not depend on existing figures of speech for your composition. Create your own and let others copy you. In the following paragraphs, we present some as examples. Let's look at them. 1. Simile. A simile is a comparison of two dissimilar objects, e.g., A. His wife breathes like a rat. B. Mary is as sharp as a razor. In A, rats are known for producing offspring within a short period. This trait is being compared with that of a wife who has many children. Though the objects rat and wife are different, what they have in common is the ability to produce many children in a short period. In B, Mary and razor are compared. The point of comparison is the cutting-edge sharpness of the two. People do not toy with a razor because its sharp edges can easily cut one's hand. Mary, too, is considered to be alert. The quality that is being compared, therefore, is that of alertness. We should note that like and as are often used in similes. Number 2. Metaphors. A metaphor is in use when the quality of an object is ascribed to another different object. Consider A. Her stomach is a den of lions roaring day and night. B. John's eyes were needles and his voice a scalpel as he stood up to fight. In A, just as lions roar when hungry, so does the stomach rumble when a person is hungry. The roaring of the lion and its tearing prowess is compared to the rumbling and the searing pain of the stomach when hungry. In B, needles are sharp objects and scalpels are sharp surgical knives. Both of them cause considerable menace to a patient on whom they are going to be used. The sharpness and pointedness of the objects are therefore used to describe the scattering effect of John's voice. Both serve as John's fighting instruments. Note again that the objects compared are different: eyes, needle; voice, scalpel. 3. Rhetorical question. These are questions which need no direct answers because the answers are obvious from the questions. Here are some examples. A. Who among you prefers hell to heaven? B. Who here is so strong as to challenge God to a duel? In both questions, the answer is none. Nobody will stand up and say he or she prefers hell to heaven, or that he or she is challenging God to a duel. So the answer is obvious in each case. 4. Personification. Personification is the description in which inanimate objects assume the qualities of human beings. For instance, in the following: A. The gun coughed twice and the dog died. B. Death kills the herbalist and his oracle. In the first example, gun, a lifeless object, has been invested with the ability to cough like human beings. In B, death, an abstract object, now has the ability, the power, of taking people's life. 5. Euphemism. This is a way of conveying unpleasant information in a subtle way, as in the following examples. A. The twin brother has gone to buy horse's horns. B. Sarah is looking for the fruit of the womb. The first example is a subtle way of saying one of the twins is dead. The second example means Sarah is barren. Number 6. Onomatopoeia. When the sounds of a word stand for the object being referred to, then onomatopoeia is in use. Thus we say, the gun boomed, the glasses tinkle and clink, the water splashed, and the mouth munched. Each of the italicized words represents the action of the nouns in the respective sentences. Boom is the sound made by some guns. Glasses tinkle and clink when knocked together, as in toast. Water is splashed when dashed against a hard surface. The mouth munch when food is being chewed. So, the words are sound symbols. 7. Hyperbole. Overstatement. For purposes of emphasis, events and actions may be exaggerated or overstated. Exaggerations may also be made to achieve a particular effect in a story, e.g., to win a reader's sympathy. This is technically referred to as hyperbole. Here are some examples. A. Abu works harder than a clock. B. Jimmy's tongue is sharper than a razor. The exaggeration in A is obvious when we consider that a functional clock works without stopping. So, to say a person works harder than a clock is to say the person works for more than 24 hours. This is impossible. It is an exaggeration. It implies that Abu is a workaholic. In the second example, we realize that tongues are generally not used for cutting things. However, when it is now considered to be sharper than a razor, the implication is that it can destroy things. Thus, It is an exaggeration. 8. Repetition. Repetition, also called reiteration, is the reoccurrence of a word or phrase in the same sentence or passage. When the same word is used, it is called repetition. When a synonym is used, it is called reiteration. The following are examples. A. The man argued and argued, all to no avail. B. We are happy and our joy knows no bounds. In example A, argued is repeated to show the length of time the argument took. In B, the two clauses are near synonyms. The idea of happy is reiterated in joy knows no bounds. Number 9. Irony. Irony presents ideas in an indirect manner. It affirms something when it means the exact opposite. Consider the following. A. Ranty, can you carry my bag? B. Yes, after all, I'm your servant. In this example, B's reply is an irony. She said yes when she meant no, and we know this through the supporting statement. Since B is not A's servant, the statement is false and therefore it is an irony. Here's another example. A. There is no sign of invasion to warrant any preparation. B. Sure. Why not wait till the enemies point their guns at us? B's reply in this exchange is an irony because it means exactly the opposite of what is stated. It means that even though the enemies are not at sight yet, the country should not wait until it is too late to defend its citizens. Also, this reply has an element of irritation and rebuke for the first speaker. When an irony has these elements, it is called a sarcastic irony. Polishing your composition. Certain elements are pertinent in language use. While some of these are still in use, some are already outdated. We shall point this out as we explore the means of polishing your composition. Register. Register refers to vocabulary items that are peculiar to specific fields of human endeavor in the society. Such professional fields include law, banking, health, broadcasting, photography, sports, engineering, agriculture. In communication, these fields are distinguished through words which name specific things in the industry. For instance, check, teller, and bank draft are related to banking. Syringe, needle, and cotton wool are peculiar to health, while crops, soil, and tractor are related to agriculture. In the health sector, gynecologist will be preferable to specialist in women's reproductive system. Use orthopedic specialist rather than bone specialist, and pediatrician rather than specialist in children's disease. You are expected to know the register of the subject you are discussing and use them appropriately. Your proficiency in the use of registers shows your grasp of the language, and this makes the composition more concise. Note, however, that there are overlaps in the registers of some files. For instance, tractor overlaps in engineering and agriculture fields. Figurative expression. These are expressions that add color and beauty to your composition. They do not have literal meanings, but they capture the imaginary or real pictures the writer wants to paint to the reader. Examples of these include Mba murdered my goat. In this sentence, murder is not used in its normal sense. Rather, it is used to evoke pity from listeners. What the sentence means is that Mba has killed my goat without any just cause. Like registers, figurative expressions are pungent. They make compositions less wordy and, most importantly, beautify the language. See more details on the Lexis. Creativity. This is the writer's own imaginative use of language. It brings originality into the use of language and earns you, the author, the reader's respect and approbation. For instance, when you say, "The driver kicked the throttle," which means the driver revved on the accelerator, the reader will not fail to see the newness in your use of language. This is because the reader has perhaps not come across that expression anywhere else before. Notice that you do not need any sophisticated words to be creative. Simple words make it easier for you to weave your words into an effective web of communication. Here is a spontaneous speech from a school principal to his students. If I jump into your class and ask you in particular to recite the national anthem and you are unable to recite it, I will bruise your back, I will bruise your buttocks. If I'm not with my cane, I'll rain blows on you. If you want to escape through the window, I'll cross you through the door. Do you see the creativity here? He used jump to describe his unexpected arrival in the classroom, and rain to measure the number of blows the culprit will get, and he used simple words throughout. Proverbs. A proverb is a witty saying that captures an idea concisely in fewer words than would have been necessary without proverbs. However, proverbs are becoming increasingly archaic or overused because many of them have been overused and have lost color. So you should use them sparingly and only when it is absolutely necessary. Usually, proverbs are used to the greatest advantage to introduce a theme at the beginning of compositions. It may also be used to tie the loose ends of arguments together in a conclusion, especially in an informal writing. Clichés. These are overused expressions. Some writers created certain expressions and popularized them. Because of the beauty in such expressions, other writers continue to use them. Therefore, in some compositions, one comes across these familiar expressions because the authors want to add beauty to their composition. However, they achieve the opposite because the expressions they used are very common, so the reader finds nothing new or exciting in them. Thus, expressions such as has become a cankerworm that has eaten deep into the fabric, men of timber and caliber, cannot be overemphasized, etc. have ceased to excite readers. Modern writers look inward and create their own expressions which make their compositions lively and interesting. Circumlocution. This is the practice of discussing issues around a point without discussing the point itself. Sometimes the point is enshrouded in too many words so that the reader does not understand the author's message. Circumlocution makes your points vague, and readers may think you lack adequate knowledge of your subject matter. A fallout of circumlocution is wordiness. When compositions are wordy, then the authors have used too many words than are necessary to present their ideas. To avoid this pitfall, you should go straight to the point of discussion and limit digressions to a line or two. In addition, each word in a sentence must be accounted for. Tautology. In some cases, writers repeat the same idea in different words. Such words are often placed side by side in sentences. Examples of these include night vigil, raise up your hands, clap your hands, should in case, return, reverse back, nook and corner, etc. What we should note in these examples is that the meaning of one word is included in that of the other word written before it. When, for instance, one returns or reverses, one goes back. So the use of back with these words is tautological. When you clap, you use your hands. So it is unnecessary to say clap your hands. Or do people clap their feet? Study session summary. In this lecture, we have examined the subject of language and expression. In the process, we discussed language use and the audience, what constitutes informal language and formal language. We also did a little bit of comparison of the British English with the American English. Before bringing the lecture to a close, we also examined figures of speech and explained features that could enhance or spoil a composition. That ends study session 12. Thank you for listening.